first you need to get, first people need to actually have the experience of getting in. And so there are steps to get to that point, right? So nobody needs convincing after they've had the experience, even if it's for a second, 5 seconds, enough time to let them realize that they're actually awake in a dream. They're mentally awake in a dream. They know they're dreaming. They can look around even for a second before they get startled back awake, which happens to most people. But to have that initial experience, it's like an epiphany, right? It's like nobody needs convincing after that. I mean, it's like all of the whatever work you've done to that point, because usually what happens is, you're doing something and you're using one or more of the techniques and you're focusing on that, you're concentrating on it, you're building up your mental activity, which tells your subconscious, around dreaming, which tells your subconscious that dreaming is important, right? So once you trip over that certain percentage point, whatever that is, who knows, right? I always say 51%, but it could be more than that, right? Something to move the scales, start to move the scales in that direction. You can basically trip into having, a lucid dream just while you're sleeping, right? Like maybe you're still in the stage of recording your dreams and remembering your dreams and recording them every day. And so, but because you're putting so much emphasis on it and, you're using your imagination to think about it and it's sort of coming to you through the day and you're contemplating what would that be like? Is it really like that? You're not 100% sure that it's even possible. You may believe people intellectually, but you don't really know it, right? It's sort of like having somebody, I always think of it like these movies or books where people go back in the past, and they tell the people there that there are machines that will fly you through the air. And people go, well, you're a nice person and I we've been through a lot here, so I believe you, but it's an intellectual belief. They really don't believe because they haven't had that experience, right? And so it becomes this fascination for them. And it's just an intellectual thing, right? They can tell the person or confirm to them that they do believe them, but at the same time, they have no practical experience with it, so they don't really believe it possible. And so lucid dreaming is much like that, right? Where it's like you may intellectually believe it. There may be scientists and other people and mystics and modern day people that have had the experience, and a lot of people telling you that it's possible and that they've had that experience. But until you have it yourself, it's not part of your belief system, because belief is consistent results from actions, right? So actions that you take that produce consistent results, that builds your belief system. So, you only need to have that one time before, it becomes like, holy crap, I just had that, like I always say, like the first time that happened to me, it's like I couldn't go back to sleep after that. It was insane. I was pacing the floors all night long. I knew I was too excited to go back to sleep. And I really wanted to see if I could do it again, right? It's kind of like the first time you have sex, right? It's like I just want to do that again. That was so unbelievable. I've never had that experience. It was mind-blowing, right? And so it's the same kind of thing, because it really is those kind of epiphanies that, because your mind can't help going, well, if that's true, then, and I've experienced it and I know it to be true, then some of these other things may be true too. And it means that I could experience it, like being able to be there for longer periods of time, being able to mobile around in there to direct the experiences that you're having in a lucid dream state. And also, to do things mentally that will affect your exterior world, in a positive direction. Physically. Yeah. So, this is,
Yeah, like a lot of the books that I found really inspiring about dreaming is like the ones that talk about how, there's no difference between dreaming and waking, right? Or they mention it, or they have some little line in there about
Right.
how it's almost like kind of a suggestion, but it's not like they don't go into it explicitly.
Right.
But
Right.
that's something that you talked about a lot.
Right. And so, we have to take it a step at a time, right? It's like, it's, it takes some time, right? Like we have, if we're adults in doing this, then we have a certain amount of baggage that's been, we've accepted that says that that's not possible, or it's just fantasy or whatever it is. And
You mean that dreaming and waking are the same, or that you're creating your experience?
right, or that even lucid dreaming is a possibility, right? So
right.
it's like, it's enough. Let's not say it's enough. Let's say it's a great experience to have that, even for 5 seconds, to know that it's possible. But once you have that, nobody needs to inspire you to do more because you're hooked. It's like, because just thinking that there's a whole, that you could at minimum double your life. There's your dreaming life, your sleeping dream and your waking dream, right?
You've talked about how at a certain level of stability in your dreams that it becomes like more real than here.
Well, there are certain aspects of it that you realize once you're able to stabilize and stay there longer, just looking around, that would be clear to you that there's a surrealistic quality to the dreamscape that isn't so here unless you build that here, right? It's possible to, from an attitude and a way of looking at things, transfer that, to this place as well. But that's for another time, right? So, but it has that surrealistic quality, right? So, colors are brighter and sharper, and, and your thought process is clearer.
But even like the solidity of form and your experience of it, I think a lot of, when we think about dreaming, even lucid dreaming, a lot of the time we think like it's, because
ephemeral.
Yeah, ephemeral or foggy or...
No, not so. Not so. It's, not like a regular dream.
Right.
A lucid dream is just what it says. It's extremely crisp and clear and surrealistic, more brilliant than what we normally think of as being normal reality, physical reality, the waking dream.
So that's part of what you mean by like doubling your life, because your experience is there. It's like, what's the end product of our any daily life experience here is just the experience of it, right? Not not like if we achieve a goal here, it's not like, oh, we've manifested something physical that's now permanent in our world or something, like,
right.
Even though we relate to it mentally as if it's has more permanence or whatever, because it's physical, the end product is still just an experience. And so you're saying that in the lucid dream, it impacts
your experiences are just as real, if not more so.
And they impact you.
They impact you the same way, if not even stronger, because they're so much more crisp and clear. So, and that you can repeat them in different scenarios over and over again. It's just like school, right? You learn a type of process in math, right? And it's like you get it and you can do it, but can you repeat it over and over again so that you really understand it from different angles and
so you're
what its value is?
Even like a specific dream or experience that you initiate in a dream, if you have that kind of control, you could repeat that experience many times and experience it in different ways, so that
to really go into the depth of the experience and really what is at the what's at the core of that experience. What does that boil down to?
It's like a choose your own adventure. Like one time I read it, I take a left at this path, and one time go through it, I take a right at this path, or I say this to this person or whatever, right?
Yeah. See, the way that we construct this physical reality, the waking dream, is that we feel like we're just, like that it's happening to us, and so we're just reacting to it. It's like, here's the scenario, this is what's happening independent of us, and then we're reacting to it in whatever way we can. And if we're smart enough and clever enough and fast enough, we react in a good way, and we don't succumb to it overwhelming us. And so, but in a lucid dream, it's just the opposite. It's like you have a certain amount of control there, because you can repeat the experience over and over again, and that you're in your subconscious, and this is part of that landscape, and that you are it's coming from you. It's not like independent. So when you're experiencing that and you're going through it, again, you can go through that experience, let's say a specifically painful experience that you may have experienced in waking reality sometime in your life, whether it's childhood or whatever. You can go back to that and then work through it in a way that's going to be, where it becomes, it doesn't impact you the same way, right? So it's like, that's the whole thing. It's not, I can think of so many scenarios where it's just such a great thing, right? Like, if it is some kind of traumatic event, when you repeat it with different outcomes, or you repeat it with different understandings from different viewpoints, looking at it, playing both roles, all of these scenarios, you get a deeper understanding, but in that deeper understanding and bigger picture of it, right, from multiple angles, it takes away the sting of it to some degree. It's like you learn the lesson deeply from almost an objective viewpoint rather than a subjective viewpoint. So you're turning it more from subject to object, right? And so you can look at it and say, okay, here's what it is, and and I understand it, and I've worked through this many times. It doesn't make it, or it makes it not as traumatic, right? Because it's been reviewed so many times that you're just sort of like, okay, I'm done with this. And it's a brilliant way of doing that, and sort of taking out those traumas in our life that have really stymied us in a lot of other ways. Because because you're working with your same waking consciousness, there's no difference between the waking dream and the sleeping dream as far as that goes, right? You've experienced it. It's not like you come back and you go and you forget, and you go, oh, wow, I think that was 100 times that I did that, but I don't remember anything about it, and I don't internalize any of it. No, you come back and you say, wow, I think 100 times is enough. And I really get that on a whole different level, to the point where it's not obstructing me from anything else, any other experience I want to have in this waking reality. It's not become a barrier anymore. It's no hindrance whatsoever. And I have enough experience with it that I would recognize that situation coming up in any other waking scenario and act, appropriately to move it in the direction that I want. And so whether that means just stopping it right in the moment, or deflecting it into something else, or not even being triggered by it, or whatever it is, right? It just becomes one of those things where you're, it doesn't have a negative effect on you anymore, which is, I mean, that alone is worth the price of admission, right? It's like, if you offered that to people, like, okay, you don't need to go to a therapist now. You don't need to spend 10 years on the couch and spend, $100 a session on this. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? But it's like, we can teach you how to do this yourself to the level that isn't even possible from a therapist's couch, no matter who is doing it for you. You could have Jordan Peterson as your psychologist, and it ain't going to be near, it's going to be a shadow of what this would actually be for you.
Right.
And I really like him, so it's like,
Yeah.
that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
But that's just the, that's the scenario.
Yeah.
So it's like, back that up, let's play it again. Or, if you can stay within that zone, right? And you learn to do that. We teach you how to do that, step by step. It's a process like anything else.
So that it is possible to literally have that much control within a lucid dream, to literally set up a scenario and say, I'm going that's, if you guys are wondering what's making all that noise, it's just Zuzu.
It's that little...
All right. Maybe she'll be in your next lucid dream.
Right. She actually controls the household, so...
Yeah. She's the mastermind.
She's the master. That's right.
Yeah.
She's the actual master.
Yeah. Anyway, so, but it is possible to have that much control that you can literally run, let's say, scenarios from,
Your past or whatever.
Your past.
Sure, absolutely.
And yeah.
I mean, think about it. People, if you're really anxiety driven about certain things, traumas that you've had in life, or perceived traumas that you've had in your life, things that are holding you back or perceived holding you back or whatever it is, right? I mean, we often dream about those things anyway, when it's just random, right? People do. I mean, but there's no control. It's sort of like you're just reliving the same experience and having the same outcome and the same trauma, or worse, and, that just compounds that, your subconscious is trying to get you to alter the ending, right? But you're not aware enough to do that. So you just let it run through as if it's a movie that you're watching with you being the main character. And then you come out of it like, those are the nightmares, right? That we just, they're traumatic events. You wake up yelling and screaming and sweating and hyperventilating and don't want to go back to sleep again either, hopefully they don't happen a lot to people, but some people do have them recurrently. And so, do you want to be, your subconscious isn't trying to antagonize you or traumatize you more, right? It's trying to wake you up. It's trying to get you to understand that you have the ability, the latent ability maybe, to control this and get through it. If it's that much of an obstacle, it's trying to help you, right, to get through these stages so that, you're taking responsibility for it, and you're going to dissolve it into something that's going to help you rather than hurt you, right? Because every time we get through a trauma, every time we overcome that and move on, we learn something from that, obviously, and that makes us stronger, right? It's like, that's the Nietzsche thing, right? That which doesn't kill us makes us stronger, right? So it's that whole idea. And although people talk about it, it's like, it's difficult to do. Let's say it's waiting for those scenarios to happen in waking reality is haphazard, right? We may never come across that scenario again. And even if we do, let's say it's 5 years out, let's say it's even 2 years out from the trauma that happened, and you're put in that same situation, you may still be so traumatized by that, you're just gonna revert back to the familiar, what you know, or, try to do anything to get out of that scenario, right? But, and on the other hand, you may never have that scenario again in your life. And so now you've got this thing that happened once, it's never happened again, there's no way to resolve it, and and it's holding you back from what you could be. And so, this is a way that you can literally, take control of it. It's more of a warrior approach, right? Where you're aggressively tracking this trauma and resolving it no matter what. Whether you have to go through it 50 times and the lion eats you, all 50 times, and then on the 51st time, 51st time, it turns into your house cat, and it's okay, right? And you resolve it in a different way or whatever. I mean, that's all just drama, but you get the idea, right? It's just one of those things. So I just feel like, okay, that's worth it. It's like people are just like, I feel like people are just looking for a direction to help themselves out.
Yeah.
What will help them out.
Yeah.
And when they're helped out, well, when they help themselves, it's even better than being helped by somebody else, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's the idea. So my idea is to lead them to that place where they can resolve that, bring them to the holodeck, and then, give them an all access key, as much as possible, right? Not just a glimpse of like, oh, you could do this. No, it's like, you're going to do this, and that's it, and here are the methods to access that and glean control and, make it something that, is going to work for you for the rest of your life. And that's just the entry level, right? It's like there are plenty of other ways to actually enhance your experience in life in general using that tool, using that method. So it's not just about resolving traumas. It's also building experiences, right? Building talents and acquiring different depths of mastery within things that you really enjoy and you really like in your life. So, and you want to enhance them even more. It's not just about resolving the hindrances, it's about building up the positives, right? And making yourself a master of those things which you already have a certain skill level. I mean, that's the two sides of the coin. And then using both of those to, kind of move you into territories that you haven't even experienced yet. Something beyond just having, a great life here, if you're so inclined. Like you can produce a lot of people produce what we would think of as a, materialistic great life here by most people's standards, right? And then, but then they're still not happy. There's more. Well, it's hard to put your finger for most of them on what that would be. And my thing is always that what I've noticed with people that have come to me that are like that need help, is that, they're missing that, that aspect of, spirituality, if you want, and in that gives them a personal experience of union with the one, right? With the all, everything that's there, right? And so, and that, because that's sort of an infinite path, it never has an end to it. So they can, if they're driven, they can go after that and experience it on deeper and deeper levels, and that's another thing that's accessible with lucid dreaming, as with other things too. There's other ways to do it, but that's one that's, I think, a brilliant tool for doing that, so, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Thank you, man.
No problem.
All right, well, we'll start diving into some of the techniques.
Sounds good.
Yeah.